Hello and welcome to Talking with Famous People. I am host Eric, here with famous people John, and Unify, with John trying to jump the gun. All right, John. Now I want to hear your idea. Now that we're recording.
Well, we were talking about how Google, with their fiber project, could possibly be a force to democratize internet service providers. So they're sort of moving a bit of the Amazon Web Services direction, where they're taking a market that's sort of this curmudgeony of like cronyism and with web hosting, and they're trying to bring service to a lot of people very cheap, that kind of thing. But it costs so much money to do that. It's probably not a sustainable business model for them just as one company. So what I was thinking is, sort of, free market and capitalism working as it should. Maybe they would sell off some of their infrastructure to smaller service providers that can manage it themselves, in smaller areas. They could do cheap services, they could do premium services, whatever else. But they'd actually be service providers trying to compete with each other versus having the post bell breakup situation. You have Verizon, AT&T, and that's it. So
Okay. Well, I don't
more
know.
competition
As
essentially.
an individual,
But
can't pay for
yeah,
service that is part of the middle class. Well, I, that's an interesting question. The issue of internet service providing, and I hope Google help solve that issue because I don't like the way that we get internet right now either, and I think it's pretty weak, frankly.
mhm.
I mean, I want stronger internet in general, and mine's pretty damn good.
Yeah, exactly.
Um,
Mhm.
my question, my I think what was kind of a more interesting question regarding Google is the way in which they function as basically the infrastructure for individual content sellers on the internet. So if you are making content and you are making money from ads, you're probably using Google Ads. If you're like for me, I'm on YouTube. That's a Google property,
Yeah,
and
double click.
it's linked in with my Google Plus page, and it's linked in with everything else. And I end up using Google for everything, pretty much. Google stuff for. I mean, I don't use it for everything. Like I don't use Google Hangouts. I use this instead. Google Hangouts is more efficient, but this is
Yeah,
gives me a
they.
little more control.
Yeah, I don't know. They are kind of the democratizing force of the internet. Even if it is just like their own company. But yeah, I'd say yeah, their current fiber business model, if they were to expand, like they're planning to, they're probably going to have to sell off some of that infrastructure at some point. Like Verizon, AT&T could do it for so long because they just had it. Like they had as Bell, as that conglomerate entity of Bell Telephone, Bell Communications. They had all the money, they had all the government help to build all that infrastructure and to keep it under management. But they became two separate companies. Google's doing their thing now. It's not something just one company can do on its own at this point. So it's going to have to trickle down, to more competition.
Right. Well, small businesses can't grow that well without using some big corporation. Well, the thing is, it's true that I can't be a successful YouTube creator without YouTube, but that just proves that YouTube deserves its cut. It doesn't prove to me that I should be able to have my own YouTube. Everyone should be able to have their own YouTube because that's not taking the consumer into account. The consumer doesn't want to go to 50 different YouTubes.
Yeah.
And I think at
Yeah.
least
No. No. Yeah. They're
Google's
filling.
way fairer than a lot of other companies by far.
Yeah. Yeah. But that's because YouTube fills the demand in a very specific way. yeah, you don't want 50 different YouTubes, or most people would anyway, because they want to be on the same platform. But the internet, by the nature of how it was built, is a democratized platform. We sort of had it here in the United States. Again, that we're sort of just piggybacking off of what Bell built, but it doesn't have to be the case that that's true, because we've built plenty of infrastructure that's no longer associated with them. We're not running off of telephone lines anymore, of course. But it's just we've sort of been at the mercy of what Verizon built, what AT&T built, and then what Comcast bought from them, and it's just sort of been a whole big mess of like 3 companies that essentially own most of the gateways to the internet. So the movement that I'm expecting is that eventually it'll be a too big to fail situation, and there's going to have to be some kind of liquidation. That's actually starting to happen right now, because there's a lot of movement, a lot of changing hands with the infrastructure between companies today. So
how do you envision the economy of the future changing because of individuals utilizing internet revenue streams as part of their overall earnings?
yeah, that's the thing. I'd say if we had a more capitalistic internet service structure, there would be a lot more room for hosting companies to come online. There would be room for the ISPs to do things themselves, and that would allow for a lot more small businesses to show their presence on the internet, to be able to do commerce and that kind of a thing, without as much hassle as to going to the big companies that can do it themselves, that have the money to pay to all those infrastructure owners. They wouldn't have to deal with that themselves. They'd just be able to go somewhere closer, more locally, and be able to have all those services at their disposal, versus how it is today, that like you have the GoDaddies and the Google Sites and WordPresses and AWS, Amazon Web Services. That's the biggest one.
Okay, unify us. How do we do that as a country?
And how do we do that? Yeah, that's sort of the hard part, because it's going to have to be a movement on the part of the consumer and also the people that own the infrastructure. So we've sort of been stuck at a point before Google, sort of broke up the market and said, like, hey, we're going to do our own internet. And we've sort of just stayed static, and we accept that Comcast is our only service provider because they bought everything in the area. And, it just tends to be how it is. But if we follow with this example, if people actually, start to talk to Google and say, hey, we can run some of this for you, we can be part of your fiber network, and, you don't have to take the financial burden of running some of these service centers. We'll do it for you, we'll run the business, and, those people go to those new, smaller service providers. You encourage competition in the network. And eventually, all those dollars, all that capital will start to trickle down, move around a lot more.
Content.
If we
Sorry. Yeah, it does sound very reasonable.
If we don't accept Comcast as our if we don't accept Comcast as our Lord and Savior, and we actually decide to, start businesses, start our own ISPs with this new infrastructure, then we can start to move away from this ridiculous, corporate welfare system that we got going on with the internet today. We could actually, have proper infrastructure that people can buy into, that people can use on their own.
Sounds like a good policy plan.
It doesn't have to be a policy plan, though. Google just has to be malevolent enough to allow us to buy some of that infrastructure. Which, I mean, if they do business smart, then they will. Because that'll be a lot of money for them, and it'll be a lot less financial burden for them to run all of those networks across the country.
Well, then, Google, I hope you're watching, and you should listen to John Sullivan. He's got some really good ideas. He sounds very knowledgeable about this. I don't really have much to say about it because I don't know a lot about it. I haven't thought about it a lot.
Yeah, and I mean, this really is just a way for Google to move its products, because Google's not a hardware company. You know, as much as people would like to think that, they're more of an ideas, they're more of a software company. They're trying to push software products. But, you know, you have all these people that don't have very good internet connections, so that's the reason why they're moving into this market. They're not moving in there so they can permanently have, like, oh, we are the Google Internet. You know, it's nothing like that. Eventually, they are going to have to sell off their infrastructure because it's not going to be financially viable for them to do it. It's good enough, you know, that they
Why
can,
do you keep
you know,
saying that, though?
dollars to build it.
Wait, but hold on.
But that's going to be more millions and millions.
Hold on, though, John. We know Google's got a shitload of capital, right? I mean, why can't they?
Yeah, but not enough that they can.
But not enough that they can do what?
It's enough that they can build the infrastructure, but it's not enough that they can maintain it for years and years to come.
Well, if they're selling internet service, they can. It'll be self-sustaining, right?
Yeah, but that's more and more service. That's more and more customer service they're going to have to deal with. That's not something they can all just do on their own with, you know, tech centers in India. That you can't do that. You can't have a service center in India for infrastructure that's in the U.S. That just doesn't work.
So your basic position is
there's no way to.
It's not what Google is. It's not who they want to be, and it's not.
It's not their corporate identity.
It reduces them from their leanness and flexibility.
Exactly. Because it would ruin their flexibility.
Okay, well, I think we just heard some very interesting tech truths from one Mr. Famous Person, John Sullivan. As I indicated before, I'm not very knowledgeable about the subject, so I enjoyed hearing it, and I feel more knowledgeable for having done so. Thank you for watching Talking with Famous People, and see you again soon.